Hey everyone, getting ready to start NP school. I bet it's a mix of exciting and kind of nerve-wracking, right?
It really is. It's a whole new world.
Exactly. And we're diving into all of that and more today as we take a deep dive into things they didn't teach you in nurse practitioner school.
Such a great resource, right?
It really is, like it lays it all out there, all the stuff they don't always tell you.
Your real deal.
And one of the things that jumped out at me was how important organization is. The author, they're big on calendars,
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
like using multiple calendars and setting alarms for literally everything.
Better safe than sorry, right?
Yeah.
Deadlines can sneak up on you.
Tell me about it. They even share this story about almost missing a clinical application deadline because of, get this, a misplaced email.
Oh, wow.
What do you imagine?
Uh,
All that work
yeah.
down the drain.
And, it's not just about staying organized on your own. Communication is key, especially with professors.
Oh, absolutely. It's a whole different ballgame from undergrad.
Right. It's easy to fall back on those old habits, waiting for reminders and stuff.
Totally. But this book, it really emphasizes being proactive, reaching out to professors to clarify assignments, confirm deadlines.
Definitely. And you know what? The author even includes email templates.
No way, seriously.
Yeah. Super helpful, right?
That's amazing. Okay, so speaking of being proactive, let's talk about finding preceptors.
The early bird gets the worm.
It's like a full-time job in itself, right?
It can feel that way.
The author tells this funny story about how they found their OBGYN preceptor at a coffee shop of all places.
You never know.
Talk about being in the right place at the right time, but it just goes to show you how crucial networking is.
Absolutely. Go to those nursing conferences, strike up conversations online.
Exactly. And once you've landed those clinical rotations, it's not just about showing up on time, looking professional.
Although those are important.
For sure.
Mm.
But those preceptor evaluations, they can make or break your grade.
It's like a long job interview. You really want to impress.
Totally. And the book really emphasizes going above and beyond.
Taking initiative, asking good questions, actively seeking feedback.
Right. Show them you're serious.
Yeah.
Okay. So now for the elephant in the room.
The board.
The dreaded boards. The author talks about their experience with the ANCC exam. Choosing the right certification, like figuring out which one aligns with your long-term goals.
So important.
It can be overwhelming trying to figure all that out.
Right. Do your research. What works best for you?
And beyond that, it's about having the right mindset for studying.
It's not just cramming facts. It's about understanding the why behind it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're going to be responsible for real people's lives.
That's the real test, right? Making a difference.
Exactly. And speaking of real life, this book gets real about the financial side of things.
The student loans are no joke.
They even have this tongue-in-cheek section called How to Stay Broke.
Ah, I love that. So true.
But what really stood out to me was their advice on negotiating a benefits package.
Oh, that's huge. Don't just focus on the salary.
Right. Benefits are where it's at. They break down all the essentials, like
Yeah.
the difference between malpractice insurances, claims made, occurrence-based.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And if you don't know, it can cost you. They also talk about things like CME allowances and even student loan repayment options. So we've covered academics, boards, even the financial side. But what about actually landing that first NP job? So you've aced NP school, conquered those boards, landed your first job, congrats. But as our handbook points out, that's just the beginning, right?
It's a whole other ball game out there in the real world.
Seriously, and this handbook doesn't sugarcoat it.
Nope, they keep it real.
They talk about all those little things they don't always prepare you for, like transitioning from the hospital to a clinic setting.
It's a whole different vibe.
Right. Like, remember those bustling nurses' stations? All the camaraderie?
Yeah, you're kind of on your own in the clinic.
The author actually describes their first clinic experience as stepping into another dimension.
I love that.
It's usually a much smaller team. And forget about those fancy corner offices.
Say goodbye to those.
The author actually tells this funny story about walking in on a colleague changing in the shared provider's lounge.
Oh, no.
Right. Talk about breaking the ice.
So awkward.
But on a more serious note, the handbook really stresses the importance of setting realistic expectations, especially when it comes to patient load.
Like, don't be afraid to ask about that during interviews.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's better to be prepared than completely overwhelmed. And speaking of feeling overwhelmed, let's talk about documentation.
The never-ending saga.
Right. If it's not charted, it didn't happen. That applies tenfold as an NP.
Truth.
And it's not just about legal protection. It directly affects billing and reimbursement.
Which ultimately affects your paycheck, let's be real.
Exactly. The author shares this great tip from their supervising physician.
Ooh, I love a good tip.
They were told to always try to finish documentation between patients.
Easier said than done sometime.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But it can save you from those late-night charting marathons at home.
That's the dream. No work after work.
Right. And that actually brings us to another important point, work-life balance. Or sometimes the lack thereof.
It's so easy to get sucked in.
It really is. Checking emails constantly, taking work home.
Times like the lines get blurred.
Totally. And that can quickly lead to burnout, which none of us want.
Burnout is no joke.
We've talked about surviving NP school, the boards, even landing that first job. But how do we go from surviving to thriving?
That's the golden question, isn't it? And luckily, this handbook dives right into it with a whole chapter on self-care.
And not just like the bubble bath kind of self-care.
Right, although I'm all for a good bubble bath.
Me too. But it's about recognizing that taking care of ourselves, it's essential. It's not selfish.
Absolutely not. If we're burned out, we can't give our patients the care they deserve.
Exactly. So how do we know if we're on that road to burnout? What are some warning signs?
Well, the handbook lists a few. Feeling constantly exhausted, that's a big one.
Definitely. Feeling cynical, detached from your work. That's another one they mentioned.
Right, and don't ignore those physical symptoms, either headaches, insomnia. Those can be signs too.
It's just our body's way of telling us something's off.
Exactly.
So what do we do? How do we actually prioritize self-care when we're juggling a million things?
Well, the handbook really emphasizes boundaries.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's so easy to say yes to every extra shift.
It really is, but saying no is so important. It's about protecting your energy.
Totally. And they talk about finding healthy ways to de-stress that actually work for you.
Like exercise, spending time outside, even just pursuing a hobby.
It's about finding those things that refill your cup.
Exactly.
And sometimes self-care means asking for help.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to reach out to a therapist or counselor.
There's no shame in it at all.
Yeah.
Now, for a little fun, the handbook also has this section called How to Not Get Promoted.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
It's like a list of all the obvious, but sometimes easy to forget, things that can hold us back.
Like showing up late, negative attitude, not being a team player.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that professionalism matters.
It really does. It shows you care.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into things they didn't teach you in nurse practitioner school, what are the key takeaways? For me, it's that this journey is a marathon, not a sprint.
Couldn't agree more.
There will be tough moments, moments of doubt. But having resources like this handbook, having these conversations, it makes a difference.
It really does. It's about being prepared, asking for help when you need it, and never forgetting to take care of yourself along the way.
Because you can't pour from an empty cup.
That's so true.
Well said. So if you're ready to jump into the world of becoming an MP, I highly recommend checking out this handbook. It's packed with real-world advice that you won't find in a textbook.
Agreed. It's a must-read.
And one last thought for all of you as you navigate this incredible journey. What are your biggest concerns? And how can you find the support you need to overcome those challenges?
Such an important question to ask yourself.
It is. Because becoming an NP, it's challenging, yes, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Without a doubt.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep thriving.